Kia ora koutou katoa, e ho ma, no mai, haere mai, ki te Palpate or StayMe always. Bringing it to you organic, live and dynamic. Now bring me your cups and let's dip into the healing well. Welcome to our lockdown series. It's day 4 and we've got a special little guest here today. We've got Kaya. Say hi, Kaya.
Hi.
My daughter. So she's going to be in the show with us today. But before we kick off, what I'd love to do is introduce you to our divergence. Anne-Me, how was your day today?
Very good. It's absolutely gorgeous here on the Gold Coast and it is 25 degrees. I'm sending you some sun if it's cold over in New Zealand.
Well, please do so. It's absolutely freezing. It's a full moon here and Cheesy and myself are rugged up. I've actually had to put our heater on because that's how cold it is. So
Yeah.
thank you. We appreciate those rays coming. How are you, Cheesy?
Yeah, I'm good. It's as you said, it's a full moon. I don't know if people know this, but the moon casts cold light, and so that's why it's always colder on a full moon.
Yes, well, fingers crossed it's going to be a little bit warmer tomorrow so I can get out there and do some gardening. We're in a level 4 lockdown here in New Zealand and we're sitting on day number 4. And as you can see, if you haven't worked it out, I have red on, the lovely Anne-Me. You have your red. Yes. And Teaser, you've got your red as well. So I was just strolling through Facebook and I saw a bit of fun challenge going around. So it was called the Lockdown Challenge for You All. Brighten my day with the first image of something with the colour red from your photo gallery. No comments, no explanations. We could all use a little fun. Then you have to repost with the colour I give you. So I thought it might be fun for us to do that live on the show today. So hence our colour red. And we'll see what colour we come up with tomorrow for tomorrow's show. But what I think is if we discuss from yesterday, relationships. It's something that we all know very well, whether it's in a child mother-daughter relationship, or within your family, with your friends, or with a partner. And being in this lockdown, what we're trying to do is really keep focused, keep positive, and try and give everybody some different ideas, some tips, some hints in terms of what you can do to remain stress-free or de-stress, calm, keeping calm, cool and collected. So relationships is the topic we're going to be discussing today. So Anne-Me, I'm going to chuck it and throw it over to you over there in the Gold Coast. What constitutes a healthy relationship?
That's an extremely good question, Jamie. And I was actually writing a speech for somebody's wedding a bit earlier this week. And we talked about what do you want in the speech? Well, what is a healthy relationship? And for me, and let me tell you, when I was in my early 20s, a healthy relationship looked very different to what it looks like now, what it feels like and what it is like now. Because I think it is a bit of a process and a progress and an experience you go through in life to determine what it actually is. But to answer the question briefly, it is synergy of two people coming together. So it's 1 plus 1. And what you actually do is you lift each other up, you bring out the best in each other, and 1 and 1 then equals 3, not 2, if that makes sense.
I love that. I love the fact that you brought synergy into the explanation as well. And we were talking about this yesterday, TZ. So for yourself, what constitutes a healthy relationship in your mind?
Yeah, for me, it comes down to 3 totem poles. And the first one is spiritual, getting the spiritual side right, because as we well know, everything that we do in the spiritual realm, it translates into the physical realm that we have here in front of us. And then it's the psychology, what goes, because everything comes down to perception, how we perceive stuff. And again, going back to the first 7 years of our lives, our perception and our psychology, which is based, or our perception, which is based on our psychology, that is entrenched. It's like set in concrete from the moment we're born all the way up to around about 7, 8 years old. And so everything that we perceive is because we're seeing it through a psychological lens on how we've been taught to approach everything. And so what happens is when you get into a relationship, you can misinterpret each other because one person is seeing the same situation from a totally different perspective, but what's transpiring is exactly the same. And then the other person is perceiving it via their interpretation a totally different way. And that's where you get cognitive dissonance, if you like, because one person is, and this is the problem with people, is they get alongside someone and then they get into a relationship and then they all of a sudden realize, man, we're actually incompatible. And that's not the case. What they haven't done is they haven't communicated and gotten to know each other and found out how each other thinks and why they think the way they do. And that's where the synergy comes in. And so, yeah, I totally agree with you, Anmi. Synergy comes from knowing each other. And it comes right down to the very words that you use and having the same definition of those words, because you can be speaking the same language, using exactly the same words, but thinking totally different things.
100%. And, you know, like you kind of followed on really, really well explaining what you need to have a good relationship. And I believe values, because I do a lot of relationship coaching and I've actually just come out of a session of relationship coaching. And many people are actually aware, like, why can I not find that person that is, you know, on my same wavelength? It's, I mean, not why, but as in because they don't do the work from the beginning. They, for me, the first exercise when you meet somebody, and I do this with friends, that's when I met you guys as well, I was like, oh, wow, we have the same value set. So that is how you know if a relationship is going to work. And it's with any relationship, friendship, love relationship with a business partner or with colleagues, teamwork, right? So I'm pretty sure, Jamie, you can agree with me there. Like if your values are not aligned with your team at work, it's very difficult to make things run smooth. And values is the first exercise that I do. And I mean, people say, oh, but it looks like an interview. Well, it should be an interview. You should see, you know, it's like it's an investment you're making for life, a relationship. So you need to put your cards on the table. We're not here to play games. And you need to see, are we compatible? Do we want the same thing from life?
I totally agree. And I suppose too, with my role with my company that I work for, I work really closely with a group of beautiful, amazing women, and we've built such you know, a tight relationship where we connect, we understand each other. And you're absolutely right, it does come down to values. And even, I suppose, when you put it into, I suppose, a business lingo, it's really being clear around expectations and setting those expectations right from the outset. So everybody's clear about what their role is, what the expectation is, and then how to execute it. And then whenever there is, and speaking, agreeing with what Teasy said, it's misunderstanding, you know, keywords where we're all speaking the same language, but yet we're so far apart. So for me, it's really understanding how to get that perception across, be very clear in terms of their understanding of what I'm saying so that we are on the same page. And you know what? It takes time, a lot of time to get to know each other because everybody does interpret things so differently. We've all got different characteristics and how we operate. So then you've got to mold your communication and what you do to meet that personality. Because the other thing we want to do is ensure that we're all ourselves. We don't want to change to suit another individual, because otherwise that's false, and that you end up being somebody that you don't want to be, or you're not. So it's really important that you build the relationship. And I suppose this is where we can move on to really figuring out how to communicate even more efficiently and effectively. And I'm probably coming across a bit more like a national retail manager at the moment. But it's key. We're in lockdown. It's going to get stressful. We're going to be in our partners' faces. We're going to be in our kids' faces. And for us here in New Zealand, our lockdown's been extended through till next Tuesday. So it's Saturday today. What's that? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. That's another 3 days. So, what are some really key things that we can do with our partners, with our family, even with our flatmates, to try and help us to get through the lockdown over the next 3 days, probably more so from that relationship perspective?
I would say if you get frustrated by actions from your partner, you need to look at yourself, because if something or someone irritates you, it is a mirror for you. It is something that you are irritated about yourself. And many people don't really understand that, but have a few techniques, and sometimes it can take quite some time, sometimes a few sessions for people to kind of see that. But what you can do is ask yourself, become the observer of why you are irritated and what really irritates you. And if it is your partner, or if you're actually irritated with yourself. And what I would also suggest, if you really want to do some work on, growing your relationship stronger, start doing the inner work on you. Because many people say, but he needs to do this or she needs to do that, and then it will be fine. But that is just things you can put on the table as communication and conversation. And you say exactly what you just said, Jamie, expectations. There is a book by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's a Mexican Toltec, very ancient knowledge, a writer, and he says live your life according to these 4 agreements. And I'm just going to try to remember them because I never rehearsed for the show. So one is don't have expectations. One is be impeccable with your word, and with your word is also the way you speak to yourself. So how do you speak to your partner? How do you address your children? And obviously the way you address your children is the way that they are going to address you, because you're the role model. What you give, you're going to get back. And sometimes people are so shocked by their children, but they've never really put on a recorder and listened to themselves speak to somebody else, right? So be impeccable with your word. Don't have expectations. Always do your very best. So when you are sick or tired, obviously you're not going to perform as well as when you are 100%. You have slept 10 hours, or 10 hours is too much for me, but you've slept a full night without interruptions. So your performance is going to be different, but you are still working from the heart and doing the best that you can. So that is the most important thing. And then there is another one, don't have expectations, and can't think about the other one, but it will come back. But if you are interested in making your relationship better, I would recommend, I read a lot of books, and I recommend a lot of books to my clients as well. It's a super easy read, so don't be scared. It's very simple language, and that's what I love about it. It's The Mastery of Love and the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And The Mastery of Love has really not much to do with a romantic relationship. It's more to do with understanding the self, which is super important before you can go on and have a relationship with someone.
Actually, I listened to a podcast that had Don Miguel Ruiz in it, and I just connected with him straight away. He's very spiritual. What's his background, Anne?
I think he's Mexican.
Yes, correct. Yes. And he had his son on the show, and his explanation is simple, it's direct, but it all is derived from kind of that spiritual, emotional, and he speaks so much about love, which is something also that's something we're going to talk about. And I like the fact, Anne, that you brought up that you want to start with yourself. This morning I woke up not feeling 100%. I did a live and I put it on Insta, and it was my mental brush for the day. And it was about self-soothers, and it was about me taking time for myself, where I decided to put my makeup on and obviously straighten my hair just to make myself feel good. But I decided to make the decision to get up and be positive, even though I wasn't feeling 100%, and actually set my mind on a positive mindset, because otherwise, if I hadn't, I probably would be a dragon all day. And again, that's that whole effect that you will have on others, which will obviously affect the relationship.
Yeah, 100%.
What's that book you've got?
This is the other book. Let me just see if you can see it. Can you see it?
Oh, Mastery of Love.
Mastery of Love, yeah. So this is his other book. I was just checking because I have a lot of books, but I must have given it to a client to read. The other one is the four agreements. Yeah, and it's a very skinny book and super easy to read. So it's an excellent read over the lockdown as well. If they don't have it in your local library, here in Australia, they do have it, these books. But you can order it on Amazon and even secondhand. And it's a good book to read and read again and read again.
So, TC, what about you in terms of, different suggestions that you can recommend to continue to build those relationships whilst we're in lockdown?
Yeah, well, I have 2 totem poles that I revolve my whole life around. Well, 3 actually. So when I talk to people, and I always get questions, and I go slice that, because you really have to understand what the ideas are behind their questioning in order to answer their questions. Because if you don't know what their ideas are, then how can you possibly answer their questions? And then there's the psychology behind the way they interpret what you say to them. And so really you got to take it down to the nuts and bolts of psychology. And that's real, real important. People don't spend enough time talking to their partners and getting going deep, going sub-level, man, when it comes to psychology. Why do you think this? And then once you start asking those questions and getting those questions asked, you go deeper and you start finding out, I was taught this and I was taught that. And then I'm like, well, are you sure that's what you taught? Or is that just the way you perceived it to be when you were taught it? And that's how deep psychology goes, man. And the deeper you go, the more you understand your partner, and then that's when the synergy clicks in, because you start understanding why each other thinks the way you do. And then you because you're understanding how each other thinks, you don't have to say slice it anymore, because you know what they're thinking when they ask you, because you know their ideas. Well, how do you know that? Because you know where their psychology comes from. And so the perception becomes effortless. And then because it's effortless, your synergy keeps building. And then when you're out and about just doing stuff, you don't even need to say anything. You just look at each other and you know. It's just a tacit understanding. And I think that's where people need to spend more time in their relationships, is really getting to know each other. And when I say it's like an atom. And so you've got the nucleus, and that's where you really need to get into, because when you first meet someone, you're like 2 electrons floating in outer valence shells with each other. And what you really need to do is go deeper and penetrate the nucleus and get to know what the protons are. And I've got little Kyra in here, and she's wanting my phone, so I'm about to give it to her. But I just have a scripture that I wanted to share with people. And this is from the New Testament, Romans 12:2. And this comes down to psychology. Don't copy the behavior and the customs of those who teach you, but let Yahuwah transform you into a new person by changing the way that you think. Because if you're good enough to change the way you think and really get to know what's going on with people's psychology, you can start erasing and expunging a whole lot of problems, and then you get the harmony come into your life. Then you're harmonious spiritually, you're harmonious emotionally, you're harmonious mentally, because everybody's on the same page, because you all know what each other's thinking. Why? Because you get down to the nuts and bolts of things and you define everything.
I like that you brought in the scripture to help people to have that understanding. And something else that I do, which I've mentioned before on the show multiple times, is every morning before I get up, I pray. And where I have maybe family members or where I feel I'm lacking having that connection or that synergy with a particular individual, I'll actually add that into my prayer, and I will, ask for a relationship between myself and, my daughter become stronger and better. And I actually go into the detail of why. When I pray, I only focus on key things because those are the things that mean the most to me at the time. And I've been doing that now for a week, about 2 weeks, and I've been focusing on 2 people, and I've been praying for those 2 people and their relationship to become better, to become solid, to become more connected, and to build that synergy. And it's not a love, intimate relationship. It's just literally, a child and an adult, so that their understanding of one another can slowly start to merge so that they can both understand each other. And I've been doing it now for a couple of weeks, and I've started to see some changes between the two. The child's becoming a lot more accepting of the adult. The adult is understanding how to communicate better and on that level of that child, because every child is different. And as we all know, especially being a parent, and hence why today, for example, we're in our own little bubbles here in New Zealand, but I've actually got a bubble with my daughter's father. So there's 2 bubbles that we have. And this morning I went and picked up one of my children, Kai, who's still with me today. And it was really important for me to have some quality time with one of my children, because I felt like I needed to start continuing to build on the relationship that we have. So I pulled her aside, so I've got her here with me. And it's so important because, with the stresses of life and what life brings us on a day-to-day basis, and when you've got so many people around you in that family unit and you're trying to attend to everybody and you're rushing around, sometimes you feel like you're disconnecting from an individual. So I felt as though I really needed to have Kai here with me. So all day we've just been lounging around the house. I've been catering to her needs. I have been speaking her language. We've been connecting by being creative with masks. We were sewing some masks today. We were watching TV. We were having conversations. I was watching her doing her gymnastics. But it's the little things, just really actually acknowledging the fact that there's something missing and actually acting on it is what was important for me. And that was probably, a really good example if there's things that you can take away, from my experience with that. I know communication is something else for me that's really, really important, because sometimes I feel as though people don't understand me, but I look at myself and it's probably the way that I'm actually explaining it. So I really like to ensure that my communication is on point, and my listening, I really try and listen to my partner to understand what he's saying, because you can hear but actually not listen to anything that they're saying. And me, what are some other key things that you recommend to continue to build, those great relationships? And I think also it's something you've got to work on. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. And exactly what Tizi said in the beginning, it's like electric sparks flying everywhere, and because it's just that infatuation with the person, or you should have that, because if you don't have that, that's a little bit strange. It's always a good start to spark it off, and then dig deeper and deeper and deeper. It's like an onion, you peel back and you find the core and what is in there. Who is that person really? And one technique, and Jamie, what you said about listening is so important. I notice when I see couples and like they're just talking over each other, that I have to say, can you just stop? And did you actually listen to what he or she said? And then the party is just not listening at all. And then you say, oh, what did they say? Oh, this. What do you think they actually mean with this? Never thought about it. And another thing that I really use is the 5 love languages. So everyone's different, and this goes back to what Tizi was saying before. We pick up on things from what we have had in our life as role models. What does a relationship look like? I think off air we were talking yesterday about relationships in continental Europe. So I'm not saying the UK, because to me that is not really Europe. Relationships between females and males, and even males and males, and I mean, you know, because for us in Europe we don't really. I have some gay friends, and they're just so beautiful to watch because they really love each other and they support each other, and there is that synergy. So there is basically a flow of female and male energy. But let's just take a man and a woman, for instance. So it's very different how the man nurtures the love for the woman, and the woman, you know, like nurtures her love for the man. And there is that deep admiration for each other and understanding. And a good way to start with this is everyone has different love languages. And out of the 5 love languages, and I'll read them to you because I actually looked it up this time. So these love languages is words of affirmation is 1. Spending quality time together is 2. Physical touch is 3. Acts of service is 4. And receiving gifts is 5. So this is obviously a cocktail of whatever has happened to you in the past, whatever you have experienced, whatever you have seen as a child. This is where these love languages come from. And most men with their, you know, men have male and female energy, even if they want it or not. Because if you say that sometimes in New Zealand and Australia, I don't have female energy. I'm a man. I'm a male. Yeah, I have nothing to do with female. You know, I'm not gay. You know, I'm like, it's nothing to do with gay. I mean, just relax. Everyone, females have male energy and female energy. Thank goodness we have that, because otherwise it would be a total mess. You would not function, right? So you need to determine what are your love languages and what are your partner's love languages. And that is something very beautiful in the beginning of the relationship, to discover that and talk about that. Because my husband, he is, you know, a man that one of his love languages is acts of service. So in the days when we were first together, he didn't have anything, and he came here and was like fixing this and fixing the door and fixing the washing machine, and you know, that was his way to show me like, I love you, you know. And then slowly we discovered each other's love language, and we talked about it. And you know, you just have to observe, and not just open your eyes and observe, but really look, what am I seeing? What is this man doing for me? What is this woman doing for me, right? So I think it's very important to explore love languages and really understand. And then you know why certain things, you know, somebody might buy a gift for someone, but that's not their love language. So they're just going to go, okay, thank you. And that's it. While somebody else is really going to treasure that gift, and because that is their love language. So understanding the psychology of understanding each other, but that doesn't happen overnight. And sadly, what I see is so many people, they jump into a relationship because society says you need to be in a relationship or you're weird, and it's not their match. I was actually observing this now over lunchtime. 70% of the people that I see and that I observe, they are not with their match. It's really heartbreaking to see that.
Daisy, what's your love languages?
Well, you opened up Pandora's box, man. So here it goes. So I'm a very feminine male. I have a lot of feminine energy, and my partner can attest to this. So I naturally, because of the way that I've been cultured, I naturally give love. So I do acts of service. I do hugs. I do kisses. I'm very feminine in my energy and the way that I love. And in the beginning, my partner wasn't used to that. I won't go into the details on why, but she wasn't used to it. And really, it's real funny because I have never been an emotional person until my partner. I was when I was a child, and it's like I'm a little boy again. And so because of the way that I was loved when I was a child, that's what I bring to the table for her. And she's not used to that. She's not used to being adored. She's not used to being given all the attention in the world. Not used to being not just the number one priority, but the only priority in my life. And then the acts of service, and like you took it away from me and me, because I had planned on talking about our love languages, and you hit it on the head with all those 5 points that you mentioned. And it's not just about what our love language is. We actually, and this is again going to the psychological level, and really finding out, because someone can tell you what their love languages are, but what do they actually mean when they're saying those words? What does each word that they use in order to describe an idea, what do those words, when you break them down, actually mean? And therefore, how are they conveying that message to you? Because when you make assumptions, 9 times out of 10, you'll get it wrong. Because as we all know, the mother of all downfall is what? Assumptions. So I think that's something that people can work on in their relationships. Don't just make an assumption that you know what your partner is talking about. Actually make an effort, make a concerted effort to get to know what it is they're actually saying, and make sure you're both thinking the same thing when they're explaining it. So do your cross-reference checks. Make sure, oh, what do you mean by this word? Is that the dictionary definition? Or tell me what you mean by that word. So you've really got to break it all the way down. And then that gives you an insight into how they think, their psychology, how they approach things in life. And when you go to those deeper levels, that's what you're talking about. You discover a real love for each other because there's understanding there. And once you begin to understand, that's where the synergy comes, man. And it's powerful. It's super powerful because you understand each other and you start doing life together. You start building things. And then everything that you do together, it just comes off because you already have an understanding of each other's psychology. And so everything that you do, it's like you got the Midas touch, like I spoke about a couple of shows ago. And all it is because you understand each other. You know what each other's thinking. You know why each other thinks it. And so you can move together like an arrowhead that's piercing through the wind to a target.
These 5 love languages don't necessarily mean they have to be with your life partner. They can actually, I was just reading through, and hence why you probably noticed me looking down, I was actually typing them into my notes. But these are actual momentum brushes. And these are the things that we do all day, every single day without realizing. But it's now actually taking that into consideration, having that at the top of your mind, because all these things mean, as we've all alluded to, something different to each other, and they're the things that will make, well, I know every single one of these things makes me happy. And when I have Kai here, the other point that I missed out was that when I was a child in our family, we didn't, we weren't surrounded by a lot of kisses and hugs and that kind of thing. And that's one thing I wanted to ensure that I did with my children. So for me today, it was really about, having that quality time, which is one of the love languages with my daughter, and words of affirmation, making sure that she understands that I was listening, that I was telling her that I love her, and paying really close attention, because it's those key things that as a child, and we keep talking about this, it's the first 7 years of your life that will affect you. And that's something I've been able to recognize now that I'm much older. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, by the way. But it's knowing now that the effect that it's had. Is it a bad, has it got a bad connotation to it? No, although it's something that I want to ensure that my kids are very aware that there's emotion, there's hugs, there's kisses. So, I'm making sure that I act on it now, knowing how that affected me in the past. And me, Look, again, we're almost at our time. Gosh, this show goes fast. I think we need to extend it or something, because I'm so intrigued with everything that we do.
Extend it to 1 hour. It's got to go to 1 hour.
Oh, that's, you know what, I can talk for 1 hour. Actually, I can talk for a very long time. But yeah, and me, throwing it back to you, intimacy and being vulnerable, how important is that in relationships?
It's crucial, and that again comes back to values. That is something that needs to be established at the beginning of a relationship, because we shouldn't just assume, and this is going back to TZ, because this is actually the fourth one of the 4 agreements. Don't assume anything, because you know how intimacy sometimes is a bit of a taboo, and people are like, oh yeah, let's not talk about that. And specifically like the UK, Australia, New Zealand seems to be like a topic we just don't talk about unless we drink 3 liters of vodka. And in Europe, this is very openly discussed. I'm not going to say the details because there is still privacy as well. But you need to see that you're compatible there as well, because there are people who are less in need of intimacy than others. Now, I think if you have a healthy level of intimacy, it's very necessary, because it's through intimacy that you connect. So basically, in basic psychology about relationships, how do you build a relationship? Through intimacy and eating together, spending time, eating together. I don't mean eating with your phone and the food and your partner. No, no, no. You sit across the table from each other or next to each other, consuming food slowly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're not eating like a dog or a cat. Food and intimacy are the 2 main. You know, when you are weaving a carpet, that are the basic. I don't know how you say this, fibers of the relationship.
The basic threads.
The threads. Thank you very much. Too many languages. Yeah, language soup. So that is the 2 main ones, and then everything else is all the additional layers and layers and layers, like understanding your emotions. And men have emotions too. It's impossible. People say, oh, but I feel nothing. Well, when you feel nothing, there is a big problem, because it means that you are close to being dead. So working on your emotions is super important, but definitely spend time together. And that is why it's so important. And that is what I'm totally shocked at when I see families out nowadays for breakfast or lunch or dinner. They're all sitting there on their device. The kids are placed at the table with an iPad and a headphone, so they're completely not even present. And there is no connection. It's crazy how the family unit or the couple is not connected because of they're eating, but they're just sitting in their own bubble and there is no connection. But during food and intimacy, that is how you can actually build stronger and stronger and stronger relationships.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. With my kids, I ensure that they sit at the table together and have their breakfast. The TV's off. Same with dinner. The TV's off, so that they're fully connected with what they're doing. They're eating together, together as a unit and as a group. And Teezy, what about you? How important is vulnerability and intimacy for you in your relationship?
I'm going to speak to men out there. And I speak with love, and I speak with compassion and kindness. We really have to be more in touch with our feminine side. We really have to cater to our women. It's not good enough to just go to work and be the provider. It doesn't work. Look at society around us. Society is crumbling because we're not doing our job. And even though I probably do more than most males, so this is how I act. I act like I'm still trying to win her every day. And so I wrote a track called Ticket, It's on my EP. And so if you want to get an insight into how to treat a woman, it comes back to this. So Yahushua HaMashiach, aka Jesus Christ. It talks about loving your wife like Yahushua HaMashiach loves the church or the body, which is a kingdom principle. And so if you go through all of his teachings, it actually teaches you how to love your wife, how to love your partner, whoever your partner is, whether you be Adam and Eve, Adam and Steve, Eve and whatever, Angelica, it doesn't really matter. Yet you got to take care of each other. You got to cater to each other. You got to accommodate each other. I mean, yesterday I have every now and then I'll have soup days, and I don't exactly know what's going on, but when you cater to each other and you learn each other's love language, you're actually creating a cosmos of love in your house, and it's super beneficial, so conducive and so efficacious to everything. And when you learn each other's love language and you do all those 5 things and you don't make assumptions, and that's what the show is about. It's about giving you guys, our beautiful audience, tips, momentum brushes, where you give, you receive, you learn how to receive. Because that's often the biggest problem, is how do I receive this? I love this, but I'm not used to this. And so it makes me feel uncomfortable. So it's about getting comfortable with it and learning to really embrace what somebody else is trying to give to you, and then vice versa, reciprocating that and doing those things to each other, and it creates an absolutely harmonious bubble, if you like.
I love that. And Anne-May, we're gonna just quickly finish off. If you had to give maybe 1 or 2 suggestions around things, acts, reminders, hints, tips, to those who are in lockdown, things that they can do with their partner or for their partner or to their partner, what are those couple of key things that you could suggest that they could do, like right now or even tomorrow?
What I would say is, and I said it before, I don't know if I said it on this show, but people cooking together is such a beautiful thing to do. And many people, they, like the man is like, but I don't know how to cook. And then the woman does, the cooking. And many people don't cook because they don't have time. It's not because they cannot cook. It's just because they don't have the time. They're always rushing off to, bring little Johnny to the tennis and picking up little Sophia and, and then quickly grabbing, some takeaway food. My suggestion, if you're locked in your home, order some food from the supermarket, or if you have a garden, even better, and collect the food and wash it and talk what you want to eat, and then prepare it together. And it's such an act of love, cooking together, and then dine together. Pretend you're in a very fancy restaurant in Paris or something, and sit in your kitchen. You can imagine anything, but go again on that first date, but prepare the food together. And if you really don't want to cook, well, just get some food, but go again on that first date. I mean, the first date that you felt comfortable, because the first date, sometimes people are like, that scared. So, but the first romantic date that you're like, oh, wow, yeah, this is beautiful. Because I always say to everyone, there is a reason why you are with this man or this woman. What was it that attracted you to him or her initially? Now, yes, we're maybe 5 or 10 years down the track, or 3 years or whatever. But what was the thing that you really admired in him? And then you see a smile come on their face, and because they're reliving that memory, and that's how you can bring back these memories and this romance as well. And Tizi, I wanted to say I completely agree with you, and Jamie. And you have a lot of male energy, even as a woman, because we were always doing. And that's the 3 archetypes. I will talk about that in another show and explain how that works and how you can monitor your emotions, because it's quite a big topic. It is give yourself homework, and it's a very simple homework. It doesn't even involve a pen. It is when somebody offers you something, and this can be a compliment, like, "Oh my God, honey, wow, you look really good today. Thank you." Like, accept that as a comment, because most people, they cannot accept a comment. Even in I mean, of course, we're in lockdown, but if you go somewhere and you see somebody and say, "Oh wow, that's a really beautiful dress you're wearing," most people, they look at you like, "Oh my God, is she gonna rob me, or is something going to happen?" But they can't receive compliments. So really instill this in your mind. That's your homework. Accept at least one positive, like compliment.
Anmi, it's real funny that you're saying these things, because I do these things to my partner and she's not used to them. Like every day I'll stare at her and she'll go look at me and do the same reaction, and she'll go, "Hmm?" And I'm like, you know why I'm staring at you, man.
Yeah. What's wrong with her?
But women are like, and I'll talk about it in the next show, I promise, because it's so important when you break it down and people understand that they're not just one person. They see that the woman is a queen and man is a king. And have you ever seen a king and a queen fight and, like do crazy things? Never. They're always composed in their energy. They are together. They rise. They're beautiful. They are an example, right? So that's how we aspire to be. I mean, at least I do, and I really I want to have a balanced emotions, because it's not only good to the outside world. I mean, the outside world will recognize you in a different way, but it's good for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So easy. Yeah.
And I just want to speak to that, because, and again, I'm speaking to brothers out there all over the world, wherever you are. If you're listening to this, if you're hearing this message, a real king caters to his queen, man. And that's all I wanted to end with.
One suggestion that I am going to make, and it's very simple, and it's something that you can do now, it's something you can do tomorrow, it's something that you can do every single day, and I urge you to do so. And as partners, you can do it with your children, you can teach your children. I know for me, sometimes what I do is I want to surprise my children, and I'd love to give them treats all day, every single day, but I know that's not possible, and potentially in their lunch boxes, so it's not also healthy to be giving them the types of treats that I like to give my children. But what I do like to do is I don't know if you can see this.
Mm-hmm. I love you.
I love you. It's literally a pen, pencil, and a post-it, a piece of paper, and you write a note on it and you put it in their lunchbox. Or for your partner, when they're hard at work and they're in their office, when they pop out, quickly grab a post-it note, a message, maybe write a little sexy, naughty message, and then place it somewhere where the kids can't read it. But it's the little things like this that can turn your day from a frown upside down. It's amazing the effect that it can have on your emotional wellness and your mind. It's just these little things that will make an absolute difference at the end of the day.
I agree with you, Jamie. I do that with my husband. When I prepare his lunchbox, I have
What's your name, Tracy? I love Lemmy.
So that my partner does things like that for me. Another thing, just before we end, I just wanted to speak about. So I've never understood flowers, and again, that comes back to psychology and what it means to people. And sometimes we don't appreciate. Well, we don't understand what the gift means, and I think that's a really important psychological component to understand, because if you don't understand what the gift means, then how can you appreciate the act of service? And so I think that's very important when it comes to understanding another element of understanding, because I've never understood what flowers mean. And there's actually a James Morrison song that talks about that. he's never been able to figure it out. I've never been able to figure it out. And then the other day, my partner did that for me, and that changed. It changed the way I consider flowers now, and so I actually see them as a love language, a momentum brush.
Beautiful. And females, by all means, feel free to get your men flowers and pick it out of the next door neighbour's garden and put them a little bow around it, Daddy, because it will mean so much to dads and to partners. Unmi, sorry, what were you saying?
No, I said that's what I do when my husband takes his lunch. I sometimes write on, like, if I have a napkin, I write, a message on there like "love you" or something. Really, not every day, but like as a surprise, And sometimes he has a bad day, and he said, this made me feel better. So it's always like that, right?
I love it. It's the little things that make a difference, and a lot of people don't understand it's the little things that will always be the memories that are instilled versus the big extravagant gifts, the materialistic gifts. It's just the little things that definitely matter. Well, look, we've definitely gone well over our time for our show, and we are actually going to continue on with relationships because it is such a big component in everybody's lives, especially looking at the types of relationships, emotions, even delving into a little bit more about being vulnerable and intimacy, and how those love language can really impact your life. And I suppose too, it's also going back to when you're a child and really looking at what you can do with your children to help them to be successful in their future relationships. So thank you so much to Unmi and TZ for your time today. I really do appreciate it. And look, to everybody out there in lockdown, if you've got any questions or queries, please feel free to send a message or comment through to our social media. We'd be more than happy to assist. Jump on YouTube, StayMe Always the Healing Well, like and subscribe. And we're looking forward to bringing you another show that will go live. Oh, a little kid's voice. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will continue with our lockdown handles of hope. And have a great evening. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.